Hello and welcome back to the only show with more starfighters than MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch. I'm Max.
I'm Luke.
I'm Matt. Oh!
And this
I'm
is
Matt.
Horse for
Oh,
Thought.
Jesus.
We'll fix it in post.
Great start, great start.
I totally went out of order. We're out of practice.
You don't feel
no,
good.
we did miss an episode
We take a
by
break
release.
for 1 week.
Guys,
The problem is when we go around and say our names, we go in order in which we were sitting in person, and it's been too long now that I constantly forget what
Yes.
that order is. So whenever I'm not going first, I always mess it up as well, I feel like.
We've got to record
Anyway,
in person more often, is the moral of that story.
I agree. I'll make the trip. If we can have the Force for Thought LLC pay for my gas mileage, I am down.
We'll have to
Gas-
talk to the producer about that one. I don't know if we have the budget for
What's
it.
your gas mileage, Matt? That's got to be like $20 for a round trip between Cleveland and Columbus, right? I'll cover that.
It is, and I drive a Fiat, so it's pretty good.
I'll
What
cover
does
it.
the Fiat get?
We'll put ads
All
back
right,
on
good.
the pod.
Yes, there
Ads
is.
back. We made like a fraction of a cent.
No.
and
Don't tell him. No peek behind the curtain. Just kidding.
it was like 5 minutes of ads before and after every episode. Anyway, that's not why you're here. You're here because we don't have ads. But anyway, you're here because we're talking about Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13, The Jedi. The return of Ahsoka Tano, the debut of live-action Ahsoka Tano, Mandalorian, the meetup, the kind of episode we've all been waiting for a couple of weeks now. If you've been listening along, you know that we've been looking forward to this episode ever since the meetup with Bo-Katan in Season 3, and then we took that little side excursion in Episode 4, and we were kind of like, what the heck, we want to go to this plot in Episode 5, but then Episode 4 turned out to be a really good episode.
Yeah.
And Episode 5 turned out to not even be that great of an episode. I was very underwhelmed. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm curious what you guys think, because it was interesting going back to rewatch this episode, because this is one that I'd already seen multiple times, so I've known it very well. So the other episodes that I was surprised by, I didn't get an opportunity to go back and rewatch. So this one, I was watching it, and I was like, all right, like it's, I guess at best as good as I remember, but I wasn't like surprised by anything. And there were a couple things that I was like, okay, yeah, now we're doing this part, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, namely the scenes with Grogu and Ahsoka and Mando in the forest when they're kind of talking and they kind of start the Force training, and we just kind of see them try to lift a rock and everything like that.
Yeah.
Watching Force training scenes is always very uninteresting to me. You guys know how I feel about Empire. I think it is grossly overrated, the movie, Episode 5. And a large part of it is because of everything on Dagobah. And I understand Yoda is an iconic character and everything, but everything on Dagobah is just so boring to me. And the middle third of this episode was kind of giving me the same vibes. That said, starts and ends with a bang. And I'm trying to stay positive. But another thought that I had too was I feel like I've also now seen too much of this, not necessarily like episode, but story, because it was also very explored in Tales of the Empire, and then everything with Ahsoka as well, because Morgan Elsbeth was a main character in that too. So I don't know. A lot of it just felt like, okay, like I've kind of been here before, a little redundant. I've seen this episode multiple times, so nothing really stood out to me as like being, shocking, but it was, I guess, at best, as good as I remember, which isn't bad. I'm not trying to talk shit about this episode. I like this episode a lot. I think the action is fantastic. The very opening sequence with Ahsoka Tano in the woods is super fun. How she keeps turning on and off the lightsaber and jumping up behind people. It's awesome. I love that so much. Wanted to save that so I could end my review on a good note, so it didn't sound like I was talking shit about this episode.
Max, I love this conclusion
what
you're
do
coming
you
to. I feel like you're realizing this conclusion as you're saying it out loud, which I feel like is a very my thing to do. So I appreciate seeing it from another side. This is great.
No, it's I like this episode more than some of the other episodes that I've talked about recently that I probably sounded like I praised more. The problem is, like, nothing was like, oh, I forgot how good this episode was. Like, there was no moment like that for me. Like, this episode's good, but I remember this episode very clearly, and it was exactly what I remembered.
Yes.
I was nodding along with you when you started saying that this was not a very good episode. I was I mean, I won't even go as far as to say I was disappointed by it, because even looking back at my expectations going in, all I remember about this episode is how excited I was to see Ahsoka again. And now that we've got the Ahsoka show, I'm like, well, this is probably the worst episode that we've gotten with Ahsoka if you include her 8 episodes in her show. I said the same thing about the Bo-Katan episode. Like, it's really exciting to see this character, but now that that novelty is worn off and I'm just looking at the episode, it's not that exciting of an episode. I disagree with you in 100% that the middle third is the least exciting part when they're doing the Jedi training and stuff. That was the most exciting part for me, because Matt, correct me here, there was some point, I don't remember if it was on pod or off, when you like presented the actor that plays the hired gunfighter in this episode, the captain, Morgan Elsbeth's
Michael
captain.
Biehn. Yep.
And you were like, yeah, you remember that guy? And I was like, no, I don't remember that guy at all. And then I was watching this episode and I'm like, wow, I'm ready to forget this guy again. Like that, every scene with him in it. I've said many times before that I'm not into the whole Western motif where you linger the camera on man with the guns in the holster and he's tingling his fingers over it. There's a lot of that. I don't want it to sound like I didn't like it because of this, but this was a twist in my viewership. One of my kids must have turned on audio description on Disney Plus, and so I started watching it with audio description, and I was like, well, I don't hate this. It was really interesting. You guys ever listen or watch a show with the audio description on?
Give me an example. What were some things that it was saying?
They say everything that you see on screen. Every time that there's not a deliberate noise or dialogue, there's a narrator describing the setting. And part of me likes it because it's so satisfying. It made me think a lot of growing up. We had a TV in our car, a little DVD player, and we would watch something in the car, and my parents would ask us to describe to them what's happening. And it's so stressful and difficult, and then you'd start describing it, and then they'd talk. And so part of it is just really satisfying that the narrator talks during all of the quiet parts, and then she wraps up naturally whatever she was saying right before dialogue started. It felt like reading a book with buttons when I'm reading books to my kids, and I'm like, and then Mandalorian jumped down, and then you hear Mandalorian go, ugh, and it's like, it just flows perfectly. But I didn't dislike this episode because of that, but that did give me a slight different experience for sure. But overall, not a great episode.
Wow, that's interesting. Matthew, what do you think?
You know, I am kind of exactly where you guys are at as well. Rewatching this whole series so far, the episodes that I don't remember loving, I absolutely loved. And the episodes such as this, the Jedi, that I'm like, oh yeah, this is a great episode, intro to Ahsoka, I find it to be fine, right? It's interesting where, like, when you were saying, like, I think I like it more than Luke. I think I like it less than you, Maxwell. The training stuff doesn't necessarily bother me, but I also think it's crazy. I mean, I understand why you're comparing it to Dagobah and the fact that they're training, but this feels like very, when you're seeing Ahsoka and Grogu at the same time, like, I'm just like, go do something fun though. Like, the training's gonna come later and stuff too, and it's all off screen later with Luke. And so I just feel like it's this weird slow pace in the middle of the episode where I think it is interesting in concept and not super interesting in execution, if that makes sense. Because I like some of the set pieces and stuff, but I love the idea that Ahsoka's there interacting with the Grogu. I just don't love what they're doing the entire time they're together.
I want to compare it to The Force Awakens, because I came away from this episode thinking, like, wow, okay, so I'm excited for the Grand Admiral Thrawn reveal and Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth, and that all goes off into its own show, and it's great. And then there's also Grogu getting his name and going to Tython, and that's all super exciting, and that'll all go off into its own thing. Much like The Force Awakens sets up a lot of really interesting stuff, but also in a vacuum, Force Awakens is in itself an interesting and exciting story and show, or movie. But I felt like this one was not. And so I feel like I've seen people say that about The Force Awakens, and I disagree, that it's just set up in the future and it's not that good on its own, because that is how I felt about this episode of Mandalorian.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I also love Force Awakens. Sorry, Max, I just stopped because you have something probably significantly more interesting than I had to say.
No, I was gonna beat a dead horse and say the same thing that I say every episode when I complain about the people who complain about the sequels. And like one thing that they complain about is Rey being a Mary Sue because she has all these powers and you never see her train and everything. But then like episodes like this just reminds me like I don't want to see tons and tons of content of someone figuring out the minutia of how to use the Force. Give me a time jump or give me a montage and I'm there. You know, like I can make those connections. I don't need to see the first rock being lifted to know that they've unlocked that ability.
I don't know. How do you feel about Last Jedi then, Max? Sorry, just thinking about that as the whole when you're talking about Dagobah and this specifically. How do you feel about Luke and Rey training?
Well, there's another dynamic there that's not just training in the Force. There's the whole Luke not wanting, Luke reluctantly doing it, and that.
No, for sure.
But I'm answering for him. So go. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's the difference or not.
Yeah, because yes, I agree with Luke and what you said there. But I think a good example is also the Rise of Skywalker, because I feel like that is how it should be done, which is like it just kind of starts and you just see Rey at the end of her training. Like she's going through this course, she's got like 99% of it down, and then she kind of makes like a passing comment to Leia about like, oh, we'll continue our training later. And it's like, okay, they've been training this entire time.
Yeah.
Like that's all you need to know. And then you see Rey being a badass. Like that's everything I need. I don't need to see every single whatever.
The Rise of Skywalker is interesting because it's like, well, where's Leia's training? That's the part that I need to see there. That was the jump that wasn't very clear.
They addressed that in a flashback. But yeah, and that flashback is sufficient for me. As soon as you see that flashback, you're like, oh, Leia trained with Luke, actually. You're like, oh, perfect. That's all I needed to know, actually. I don't need to see anymore. I'm not curious what Leia's training looked like. Outside of what we got, I'm satisfied.
That's fair. I think well, I guess we're not here to talk about the Rise of Skywalker. That flashback is like an hour after that training scene in the beginning of the movie. So it feels odd for that entire hour.
Yeah, because they also have to introduce Leia's lightsaber, which didn't exist up to that point. And that's mostly what they were trying to do at that point. But anyway, we'll talk more about Rise of Skywalker another day. Going back to Ahsoka, so let's walk through a little bit of the episode, starting with the opening sequence of Ahsoka taking down the hired guns in the woods. I already talked about that scene. I like it quite a bit. Didn't know if you guys had any other comments on that other than it was badass.
No, 6. Great scene. Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it was badass. It was nice. Just
did you say sick or six?
Sick. Yeah.
Oh,
I heard 6 as well, but I knew.
6. I thought you were about to rank it like a 6 out of 10 or something. I thought you were being like.
No, thank you for correcting that. Go ahead and fix that in post. Sick scene.
That long tradition where we rank every scene, and this podcast is 7.5 hours long.
All right, we give that one a 6. All right, and then Mando arrives to town. He sees the people being tortured, and he meets Morgan Elsbeth.
Oh, sorry, you missed something that I wanted to talk about. Mando and Grogu approaching Corvus? What's the name of this planet?
The planet is Corvus.
Corvus. Yes. Because my audio description friend, it was like I was watching it with someone. It was so fun. She described Grogu as the big-eared foundling, which I was like, hey, that's a kind of a cheap shot, but not inaccurate. And then when he climbed on the chair, she said, and the foundling climbs on the chair with his tiny little arms and legs. And I was like, that is so accurate. And you got to specify because the cuteness is a factor. The audio description, I'm going to be talking a lot about the audio description today, so buckle in because it was delightful.
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch an episode with that just to see what it's like. I would like to hear one version of it and then do another one myself that's like really bad and me just like trying to be like, he's being cute. Oh boy, how do you describe this right now? His eyes are big.
Well, I want to go back and watch like an episode of Andor with the audio description because Mandalorian in general, and especially this episode, there's a ton of just looking around and just nodding and just a silhouette of Ahsoka and Grogu in the moonlight, and I'm like, oh my god, is she like is the audio description lady pausing this scene to describe it in more detail, or is this actually just quiet normally? Because it sounds like it would be deafeningly quiet for this long. And there's like 3 or 4 scenes in this one episode where 2 characters nod at each other for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
I would like to hear the audio description of what's his name? Rickon. the kid who goes with Saul. And then he starts doing the drugs
Oh,
with
yeah.
Saul at the end of the episode. He started huffing the rhydonium. I would like to hear the audio description of what's happening there exactly.
You can't play that straight. You gotta be like, okay, now he takes the mask and oh god, he's huffing it too.
It depends on who's doing the audio description. Someone's like, and they have a fucking blast. Like, God, I miss that life. They just like, someone clearly is in recovery. Mark Maron's doing it in the description.
All right, so then they get to the town. He sees the people being tortured. He makes his way to the inner court where he meets Morgan Elsbeth and makes him an offer that he does not technically accept. I thought this was an interesting loophole that obviously they exploit towards the end of the episode, so I'm going to kind of jump ahead and talk about that a little bit. Because he doesn't technically accept this offer to kill Ahsoka Tano in return for the spear, and then when he meets Ahsoka Tano, he tells her that. He's like, hey, she asked me to kill you, and then he's like, I didn't accept it, which is like a weird, like sense of honor that he has, which is like, if I did accept it, then I would have to kill you. So he's like why in my situation? Like I'm like I would just lie. I would just be like, okay, sure, I'll go do that, and then leave, and then go find her.
Right.
But like he has this sense of honor among himself because he's a very honorable person. That's like the culture that he comes from. I get it. But then at the end of the episode, she is like, oh, hey, I believe this is yours. And he was like, oh, I don't accept the spear as payment because I didn't accept the offer. And she's like, well, it belongs with the Mandalorian. And then he's just kind of like, yeah, that's true. And he takes it anyway. And I'm like, well, if you're going to take the spear regardless, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's just a weird disconnect there.
Yeah,
I agree. There was another way to handle that because he was a Mandalorian before, and it should have been with a Mandalorian before. Like Ahsoka could have said, "Oh, well, it's mine now, and it's mine to give you, so here you go." But
yes, it's just the wording. That's all it is, right? It's just like, just say it different. Like I agree.
All right, and then Mando travels out into the woods where he meets Ahsoka. The little action sequence between the two of them, it wasn't dragged out. It was very short. I wish it was more because it was really fun to see the two interact with each other because like neither one of them is going to win, so you're just kind of like waiting to see how this is a stalemate. But it's very brief, which on one hand is disappointing because I want to see more, but I'm also my own worst enemy because I know that if I saw more, I'd be like, why is this dragging on and why isn't he just saying, hey, hold on, I come in peace, which is basically what he does almost immediately. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, he established this.
I agree, and I wouldn't call it a stalemate. It's just that Mandalorian started talking as soon as she wasn't actively attacking him. Like they just had 1 second where they were getting their bearings, and he started talking. I would have been quite bummed if they somehow worked themselves into a stalemate because Mando is kind of a bitch, and Ahsoka is one of the best Jedi of all time.
Yeah, I do give them credit for not making it close. It just stops instantly. Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense for them to be able to do that. Because like we talk about all the time, Mandalorian, sus as a good fighter. Ahsoka, proven time and time again, very good fighter.
A lesser version of the show would have done that. And I feel like maybe that's something like Jon Favreau would lean into, but I know for a fact that's something Dave Filoni would nip in the bud. Like he'd be like, no, just to be clear, Ahsoka Tano would absolutely whoop his ass in 2 seconds. We're not dragging this out.
You ever think that like Filoni definitely is a thing for Ahsoka, right? Like I feel like he created like his perfect woman, and he clearly, he's got some
perfect woman.
He's
I was going to say, in what sense? Like a sexual thing, or just like a personal? I've created this?
Both.
Because I think George Lucas made it oddly sexual, and I like to think Dave Filoni was trying to pull back on it. When I think Dave Filoni created this character that he deeply loves in a very platonic and appropriate way, and then Dave Filoni or George Lucas was like, yeah, put her in a tube top, Dave. And he was like, well, hold on, she's 14 in the animation, I don't think that would make sense. And he's like, no, give her a short skirt, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that Dave Filoni
How old is she? Oh, 14. Oh, okay.
Dave Filoni's got some weird files on his computer is all I'm saying. He can draw. He can draw, that's all I'm saying.
George Lucas allegedly might, but I don't. Dave Filoni, I think he's cool. I like Dave Filoni. George Lucas is in the flight logs. Like, what are we talking about here? Dave's not in the logs, and he wouldn't have been if he had an extra $50 million at that time also.
Exactly.
Remind me to tell you guys something after this.
Very interested in where that's going to go.
Ahsoka talks. Okay, so Ahsoka in the woods talks to Grogu, and we get Grogu's name. So this is something that I think I was probably too in my head about, because they were talking around this little campfire, and they obviously weren't like verbally communicating. They were doing some sort of telepathic communication through the Force.
A bit cheeky with it too.
They what?
A bit cheeky with it too. They were like giggling at times.
Well, and they worded it like very vague. Like I feel like they know when not to say too much as to like how they're communicating, because he was like, "Oh, did you talk to him?" And she just said, "In a sense." And it's like that's the perfect amount that you need to be like, okay, there was some sort of communication in the Force. And then she gets the name drop, right? And I feel like the first time you hear it, you're taken aback because you're just like, oh, Grogu, that's his name. Like we finally have a name for this guy as Grogu. But now that I'm going back and I'm rewatching it, I'm like, how literal of a conversation did they have through the Force that she was able to get a name?
Pretty literal.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
And all she said was, he's got a weird-ass voice.
I don't... He keeps talking backwards? No, that's not a species thing, because Yaddle talks normal. I always forget about that. I mean, I don't want to ponder too far on that, but like, if Jedi can communicate through the Force, I don't know. I feel like there's a million times where that would have and should have come up that didn't.
Maybe you just have to look deeply into each other's eyes to do it. I think, again, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but I think that would tie up every potential plot hole that could possibly introduce in the Star Wars canon. If any time that Jedi would have been served being able to communicate with each other telepathically, they did not have the opportunity to stare intently into each other's eyes.
Also, there could be an aspect of it where you can, if you're trying to do that, right, there could be some sort of sense of like other people picking up on it, opening yourself up to the, like, I don't know, to the dark side or something. I feel like there could be some sort of like middle gray ground where she's like, okay, this is a child, 50 years old, sure, but a child nonetheless. And I feel like maybe it's like, okay, this is safe to do right now.
Yeah,
I like that
that's
too.
possible too, because there is more than just communication going on too. Because she also like looked into his memories, because she talks about his background being at the temple, being trained by many masters, and then the purge happened or whatever she said, and then his memories go dark.
Yes. Yeah. My big takeaway from that dialogue was that she said Grogu then hid his powers in order to I wrote it down. He's hidden his abilities to hide over the years. Now I just replayed Jedi Fallen Order, where Cal Kestis was like maybe 12 or so during the Purge, and he actively hid his abilities. Like, had an opportunity to use the Force, didn't do it because he didn't want to out himself as a Jedi. Grogu is a baby, one, super easy to hide your abilities, and two, looks like Yoda. So if anyone knew Yoda, which I assume a lot of people did, or at least the people that know is a Jedi, has a high M count, I feel like your visual description is what gives it away, not using the Force. I didn't care for that line.
Well, it is unnecessary because, like, obviously he did get caught at some point. Like, the Empire knew that he existed, knew that he had a high M count. They were going after him.
Yeah.
Right.
From the bounty hunters. What was Grogu doing at the beginning of season 1?
We talked about it in the beginning of season 1. Nothing. We don't know.
Yeah.
Someone
he was
had
running
him.
away from the flight log scandal.
Interesting. So maybe he kept his abilities and himself secret up until that very point.
Another note that I had that I think was in a scene that we've already covered. Another proposition. Someone else talked about having a proposition for Mandalorian. I know that that's commonly memed
Grief Cargo
as being the plot of the series. That every episode, someone random gives them a new random proposition to go. Do
I
for
mean,
the week,
true. It's not false.
call it something else, man. And then I also shed a single tear when Ahsoka said she knew only one other being like him. And I was like, well, what about Yaddle? And then Yaddle died when Qui-Gon died, which was when Ahsoka would have been 4. So yeah, she didn't know Yaddle.
I did the
Sad.
exact same math as soon as she said that.
Oh, that's
I was
funny.
like, yeah. So I was like, oh, well, she was killed by Dooku. She didn't really come around until Dooku was already a bad guy.
Damn, I didn't even think about that.
Checks out. Yoda would have been the only one she knows. I shed a tear when she was talking about why she can't train Grogu because he's too far attached to Din Djarin, and that attachment can cause fear, and that can lead him to the dark side. And she said I forget how she phrased it, but she said it could happen to any Jedi. I've seen it happen to the best of us. And it's like, oh, man.
Yeah, I hope
Knowing
that
everything I know from the Clone Wars, you can't help but shed a tear during that. And I also can't help about seeing this from the perspective of a casual Star Wars fan who's like watching Mandalorian and being like, oh, there's a new character, Ahsoka Tano. I don't know anything about her. Because they didn't divulge too much information about her, or they didn't say anything that like somebody watching for the first time wouldn't be able to immediately understand. But they still put in enough layers for people who did know her backstory to be like, I know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
similarly, what jumped out to me in the previously on Mandalorian, and I don't remember if we talked about it previously on our episode on our podcast, when Mando says he's done things I can't explain. His species could move objects with its mind, and then the armorer says, "Yeah, the Jedi can do that." There's not a single audience member that doesn't know that the Jedi are not Grogu's species. But in universe, Mando totally thinks that, right? Was he expecting Ahsoka Tano to be a little green person with big pointy ears like Yoda and Grogu? Because he thought that it was a species thing, not a... we're brushing right up against
really
Mandalorian
funny.
now, because the Jedi is not a creed. You are born into it to a degree.
Yeah.
But it's not a race, obviously. And I thought... Like, I'm glad we didn't go down that rabbit hole, but I kind of think the way the story unraveled, Mandalorian did have a bit of a start when he saw Ahsoka not be little and green.
Yeah.
He might be
Kinda
a
like
dumb
the
guy.
whole Yoda situation in reverse. Like the whole plot twist of introducing Yoda in Empire was like, oh, I'm looking for this great warrior, and you're this little green guy. And then there's Mandalorian. He's been like, I'm looking for this little green guy, and you're a...
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. It is exactly like that.
What is Ahsoka Tano?
Togruta. Is that...
Togruta.
There's no way it was intentionally... Because they didn't do anything with that. He just called he said the Jedi species once a season ago, like a long time ago. And they never addressed that in this episode, which is where it would have come up. But man, that's hysterical to think about.
But in universe, based only on what we know, though, because you're right. Obviously, there was some sort of off-screen explanation that, oh no, like any species could be force sensitive and therefore a member of the Jedi Order. Because imagine Din Djarin's perspective in that conversation now, when she's talking about like, oh yes, there's because I think she calls him a warrior. Ancient warrior something. She describes the Jedis as warriors.
Ahsoka does? Or the
No,
armorer?
the armorer does.
Yeah.
When she's talking to Mandalorian about it. So imagine what's going in his mind when he's thinking about just a bunch of Yoda's species as warriors and just being like, oh, wow, you wouldn't really expect it just from looking at these people.
That also explains why he was so chill walking through the burned forest looking for Ahsoka, and he's like just not a care in the world, thinks he's going to be a little green person that he can kick if he gets into a fight with it. And then he sets Grogu down, and he's like, yeah, you just chill here. I'm going to go look around a little bit more. And I was like, no, keep him with you. You never set him down. This is your most powerful foe yet. And then he didn't think it was.
That's interesting. All right. So then Din Djarin accepts the proposition. He agrees to work with Ahsoka Tano to liberate the city from Morgan Elsbeth. And then we get the cool little sequence of Ahsoka and Din Djarin storm the town. Again, the action is phenomenal. You can't really mess up the action with Ahsoka Tano. But watching her jump up the wall, slice through the people, cutting through the gong and everything, they do a very good job of gratuitous violence without showing the gratuity.
Yes.
Yeah, the gong is a great example. Loved that scene.
Yeah. How they kind of like used that to hide the fact that she just sliced somebody in 3 parts or whatever. And then with the droids, obviously you can see more of it, and it was also cool to watch her slice up the HK droids. Yeah, looking through my notes. Anyone else have any notes on that?
No, the action was fine,
Brad.
but I was just very uninterested in this entire sequence. Like the guy had a name, and I looked it up. Lang was Michael Bihn's character, the hired gunfighter. Mando was even
Classic.
running down this who she has. He's like, she has whatever 100 army fighters and 2 HK droids and 1 hired gunfighter. He seems ex-military to me. Like, why do we care about this guy at all? He is a stormtrooper without a mask, and that makes him a little bit more exciting, but he is no one.
Besides,
It's only to draw the suspense during the fight. So obviously they kind of split up and they do their own parts, right? Ahsoka is fighting Morgan Elsbeth against the spear, which was interesting to see. And meanwhile, Lang and Din Djarin are just outside the wall, just about to shoot each other. And like that's it. Like it's the classic Western trope that you already talked about. Watching Ahsoka fight was much more compelling. It wasn't quite a lightsaber duel because it was just a Beskar spear, but it was fun, and it was making me think, like, should she be struggling this much against her? But then I was like, it's been a long time since she would have had a lightsaber duel with anyone. And then I started thinking about that in the larger context, because like obviously she fights a lot of people with lightsabers in the Clone Wars, but I was like, as far as Jedi go in general, I bet the vast majority of them never get into any sort of melee fight in their lives, because why would they?
Yeah, throughout history, for sure. That's a plot point in the High Republic that they start doing that when the Nihil attack, but most younglings were like barely trained with a lightsaber before then.
interesting.
Are they trained against blasters though? Because it's like that's like an entirely different skill set. And it's like, oh, you can parry blaster bolts, but when someone else comes at you with a lightsaber, that's totally different.
Yeah, but it's, they present it like it's the same, like, wax on, wax off. It's you're using wax, or it's the guy with fists. It's no different. Like, obviously it is different, but
it's different.
They're presenting it in that way.
That is interesting. I'm glad that they at least still address that in the High Republic. That's cool.
We never talked about the craggy-faced man.
The what face man?
You know what?
That's what the audio description referred
Oh
to
my
him as.
God.
I had to look it up as well because I had never heard this description. Craggy-faced man. I thought it was crabby-faced man for the first. I think she said it at least 4 times because I looked it up after the third because I was confident that I was not mishearing her. Google AI, so take it for what it's worth. A craggy-faced man describes someone with a rough, uneven, and deeply lined face, like the adjective craggy describes jagged, rocky landscapes. So
Interesting.
All right.
I've never in my life heard that word before.
that's what that guy looked like.
Craggy-faced man. And I'm assuming you're describing Governor Wing.
Was he named?
He is an IMDb. But as I pulled it up, I saw this, and I thought this was interesting, that the actor's name is Wing Ti Chow, and he plays Governor Wing Tao Chow. That's not fair. He gets his own name to be canonized in Star Wars.
That seems like
How canonized is it? Because IMDb.
that's what I was
not
wondering
canon.
too.
How else is
Does-
IMDb going to get it? I
does
feel like
it
IMDb has to
say-
pull it from the credits. If it's in the credits, that's canon, right?
Does it say?
Let me go to the credits.
Yeah, please do. Because does it say on IMDb his name as that? Because
Yes.
sometimes
Yes.
if they're not credited, they'll say the same name. So it'll be like, oh, like
It says Governor. It says Wing Ti Chow. That's the actor name, and then his character. It just says Governor Wing in parentheses as Wing Tao Chow.
yes, I think that is just his name. Then I don't think that's his character. I think because he's unnamed, presumably, is my
But
It
guess.
it's-
still
Credits-
says Governor Wing.
The credits say Governor Wing in the Mandalorian.
Oh shit! All right, never mind.
Okay.
But not Wing Tao Chow.
Okay. So his first name is canonized at least.
Yes. But man, how canon is credits? I don't know. It's got to be canon.
It's gotta be. If it's in the credits, it's there.
But it's
There
not
ever
there
been
in the universe.
Something in a credit that was backtracked.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure that it has in Star Wars.
I mean,
I
Jabba
can't
the
think of
Hutt as
anything.
himself. How do you make sense of that canonically? I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's like the opening crawl being canon. Like, of course it has to be, but also
How?
then you get into the what is canon conversation. Yeah.
Big old bag of worms.
We've had that conversation. How the opening crawl to Return of the Jedi was decanonized to an extent.
Which part?
That Luke Skywalker didn't know about the second Death Star, but then in the comics he did learn about it before the start of Return of the Jedi. But the Return of the Jedi crawl says, little do they know that the Empire has started construction on a second deadly Death Star. So the little do they know is
But who's they,
contradicted.
you know?
I won't...
Is it
yeah,
the bigger they?
it's at least contradicted. I wouldn't say decanonized.
Interesting
That's
point.
interesting.
I don't know if I like that.
I know. I need
Scares
to
me.
think more. I feel like
I
we
thought
could
we'd
talk
have
about
that
at some
conversation.
point.
I'm sorry. We can have that conversation some other time.
We definitely have
No, that
had
does ring
some
a bell.
sort.
I do
Yeah.
remember kind of talking about that.
How many episodes have we done of this though? You know, we gotta start.
Lots.
We're losing. We're gonna lose some of our memories. What am I saying? Good night. I gotta go to bed.
All right, and then we get the classic Western standoff, and then we see the part where Lang's like, "Oh, looks like your side won. I'm out," and then he fakes putting down the gun, and then he whips out his blaster at the last second. And does not everyone in the galaxy know the power of Beskar? Because I mean, we joke about it all the time. Like Din Djarin just keeps tanking all these shots. Like, where was this guy trying to aim that he thinks he could have got that off in time? Like, was he going for the neck? Right in between his chest plate and helmet.
I hope so, because his scattergun was really cool. My audio description friend very clearly described it as a scattergun that fires many blasts at the same time, and so that would have been effective against
Good description
Beskar.
of a space shotgun.
I also feel like
but then he
it's
didn't
gotta
He wasn't
be.
using that. He was grabbing his pistol.
Right.
I mean, Din Djarin could have given him 5 seconds to shoot at him 10 times and then pulled out his gun to shoot him.
I think there is something about like how much do you actually know? Like in our world right now, like if we were talking about armor and stuff, like you can have an educated guess, right? And even if you're in the field of like if military or weaponry or something, it's like there's got to be, especially when the galaxy is so massive, you got to have some sort of like blind spots. I think
That's
right?
true. I don't have any military training, but it's my understanding that the strat is even if the other guy is wearing Kevlar, you still shoot your shot.
Yeah.
You don't
not.
just give up.
Double tap, back of the head, you know? Anybody know what movie that's from?
Zombieland?
Zombie
Double tap, back of the head. Now, Boondock Scenes. Double tap, back of the head.
Never saw it.
There's a Boondock Scenes? It's an okay movie that I
surprised?
really
There's no way
like.
you're surprised
I've
about
only
that.
seen the first one.
What's that?
All right, and then the town is saved. We see Governor Wing reinstated. I kind of thought that was funny because I just remember the first time watching that when he's like given his cloak and his badge and everything. Like as the audience, we're just like, "Oh, that guy was somebody significant," and not just like a random background actor that they cut to one time. But we see more of the story and Tales of the Empire, which is
but
kind
even
of wild.
Even with Tales of the Empire and the audio description pointing out the craggy-faced man every time he's on screen, I was still saying that when he got the magistrate cloak. I was like, what is this? Who is this guy? I don't care.
That's Governor Wing. All right, and then Mando goes back to the ship to get Grogu so that he can try to give her to Ahsoka, but then Ahsoka says no because he's too bonded to Din Djarin, but another Jedi can, which this is just another thing where, like, again, maybe just because I've seen it too many times, I have certain things that I'm just over-analyzing now instead of just enjoying it, but I'm like, why could another Jedi do this if you're saying no, though? Like, aren't you kind of speaking on behalf of the Jedi at this point? Like, if your fears are real, like what makes you feel better about just having somebody else do it instead of you?
Sorry, say it again?
Canonically, isn't this after she failed in training Sabine?
It would be, yes.
So that's part of it. She's already kind of blew it once.
She is playing close to the chest in general, though, right? Like she is. Also, she is kind of a nomad, right? Like that's kind of her vibe. A little bit.
Certainly in this episode.
Yes, but that wasn't the
canonically.
excuse that she gave, though. She didn't.
That's
she
true.
Didn't say anything about like how I can't do it or like I would fail them. Like the reason she didn't want to do it was because he was too bonded to Din Djarin. Like he already had too much of a relationship.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's true.
And having somebody else train him doesn't change that.
That is
I
a
won't
little
put him
She's
down
just
this
making up
path.
excuses. Ahsoka Tano's just a liar.
I won't put him down this path, but someone else can.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, and then she obviously has the line about another Jedi will find him on Tython. Then again, there aren't that many of us left. And that line is interesting because on the one hand, you're like, oh, I wonder who the other Jedi are. And in hindsight, we obviously know who one of them are. But who are the other Jedi that she's referring to? Because she definitely makes it sound like there's more than one other person out there that she knows of. And at this point in time, we don't know any.
Mm-hmm.
We know a lot that like technically could still be out there, like Cal Kestis could still be around at this time.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as to who she has in mind.
I don't know.
Sabine?
Yeah, literally, yeah.
No way Sabine. No way she's thinking about Sabine.
Or is she?
I mean, she could have been talking about Ezra, but
And I just pulled up the direct quote because you said it wrong. Because I wanted to talk about this. She doesn't say there aren't many of us left. She says there aren't many Jedi left. Because I also believe at this point she doesn't consider herself a Jedi. And I would like to rewatch the Ahsoka show because I believe it comes up then. But is it in the World Between Worlds when she goes with has the Anakin episode that she considers herself a Jedi again after that? Because I mean, she obviously says, I'm no Jedi in Rebels, and that's a very famous line and character defining for her. And Dave Filoni, oh, geez, I'm forgetting now. Maybe Rosario Dawson? There's been some behind-the-scenes stuff of them talking about Ahsoka that she doesn't consider herself to be a Jedi at this time. Or no, the opening crawl to Ahsoka says... refers to her as a warrior or something, and like deliberately not as a Jedi, and it felt odd at first.
Yeah, I think it refers to her as a former Jedi, doesn't it?
Yeah, that could be it.
Interesting.
But I just wanted to be clear about that because you said that, and I was thinking about that a lot.
Former Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano captured one of Thrawn's allies.
Also, I
Yeah, she
think
still considers
we
herself-
ultimately...
if we're considering opening crawls to be canon.
Oh, God. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. I was just going to say, I feel like the basis is that Ahsoka might just be a liar. Like, this is what we're circling around this consistently, where we're just like, well, what does she mean by that? Who is she talking about? And then we're also going and being like, well, why didn't she just say this instead? So I don't know. She might just be a little bit of a liar.
No, I feel better about her cryptic messaging and her stance on this issue when she doesn't consider herself to be a Jedi, but she does think it's a decent enough idea for an actual Jedi to train Grogu when she wouldn't, because she's not a Jedi. It's not her place. I like that. Again, none of this is explored in this episode even a little bit, which is how I feel about this episode as a whole, that it sets up a lot of good storytelling in the future, but just this episode, not that good.
Yeah.
Which they start to get into with the Ahsoka show. And what you said at the beginning of this episode is absolutely correct. It's the same thing as Bo-Katan, where it's like, that's probably why I sound like I'm down on this episode, just because we've received the Ahsoka season 1.
Yeah.
And of the, is that 8 episodes?
I said 8, but I couldn't remember
9
now.
episodes we've seen Ahsoka in. It is definitely my least favorite of the 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how can it not be? I mean, because it's not really her episode, but it's kind of her episode. It's a bit of a mixed bag of rewatching it, and after getting it was amazing when we first started, and when she was first introduced, because this is our little taste of it. But to be like, oh, we can get so much different, and so much more. It is a weird thing going back. And again, I'm excited to rewatch these and be excited about the episodes that I did not think I was going to be excited about. It's been a fun thing to witness.
I really hope we find a lot of those in season 3.
I agree. We're going to be wrong, Max.
But
it's gonna be
yeah.
great. Because again, worst case
It's a
scenario,
very-
we like it more. Like that's great for us.
There's no way you'll like it less, because you guys hate it.
I don't hate it. I actually just went back and rewatched one of the episodes recently. I just mostly like to meme on it. There are some episodes that are bad. But yeah, it's a hard thing to pull off, bringing Ahsoka Tano into live action like this, because it's like, this is a story about Mandalorian and Grogu, but like every single person in the audience only cares about Ahsoka for this episode. So that is like a hard thing to be like, bring in as like a side character randomly. But all in all, for as much as we're talking about it negatively, I think that it was the perfect live action introduction of Ahsoka Tano. And then they continue to knock it out of the park with Ahsoka. Although I have my disagreements with how season 1 ended, but I have faith in season 2.
I agree.
Any other comments, final thoughts on the Jedi?
No.
It's called the Jedi.
It is.
I guess that that doesn't matter, because Mandalorian still thinks that Ahsoka is a Jedi.
Grogu's
Bo-Katan
the
probably
Jedi.
thinks that she's a Jedi too.
Yeah.
That's true, Luke.
But then that also brings into canonicity of crawls and how it relates to episode titles. Is the episode title canon?
No.
But the episode title? What does that even mean?
It's not the same to a crawl. Crawls are more canon than
What is a crawl? That's basically just a long title.
I'm gonna wake up in the morning and be like, this episode of Matt Lewis is called. And then every morning, just start that. Start the day like that.
And then try to predict. Little does Matt know that tonight his son will not sleep at all.
Don't even say that, Luke. Why? I hope he does.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Does anyone have any force for thought?
Yeah, I do. I was
I almost
watching
went into our wind down there.
Empire Strikes Back, Max's least favorite Star Wars movie.
Not my least favorite, just overrated.
No.
You know that part where they hide in the trash and then the Star Destroyers dump their trash and then fly away. And then Boba Fett was also hiding in the trash, seeing if someone was going to play that move. And he was right. As soon as the Star Destroyers fly away, the Millennium Falcon heads out of there at sublight speeds, and Boba Fett can very easily follow him. But what if the Millennium Falcon was not hiding in the trash, and this is, Boba Fett's first strat is to hide in the trash and see if anyone's there, and then the Star Destroyers jet away, and no one flies away right away. You think he waits like 20 minutes, an hour? You think he goes through the trash to see if anyone's there?
That
He
is
really
freak
got lucky that
mentality.
they flew away immediately. They did not have it at all on their mind that someone might be in the trash with them. But if someone was thinking, well, hold on, let's wait to see if someone else is in the trash with us.
But I mean, how long would you wait though? I feel like that's the type of thing where if you're in the Millennium Falcon, that's your window to get out of there. You take it immediately. You don't sit around and wait. So I think Boba Fett, he would have been sitting there for less than 5 minutes. He's just looking to see if anyone leaves, and then he's on his way.
So you think that the likelihood of someone being hidden in the trash drops precipitously with time after the hyperspace jump? You think if someone's there,
Yes.
they're going right away? I think
He's good at his job,
I'm
you know?
obviously biased because I know that some people like to search the trash after the hyperspace jump. So if I'm hiding in the trash, I'm gonna wait and see if anyone else is looking.
Not
I
a
also
bad
think
call,
this
Luke.
is a very unique play. I don't think this is something that happens very often. I don't think Boba Fett is regularly finding people in trash.
Man, I don't know. I feel like he is. I feel like he's always finding people in trash, probably.
That's his trick of the trade.
I think he just knows where to look, and these idiots are all hiding in trash.
That's one of my, and I sound like a hater with this take, but it does bother me whenever they scan for life forms. I feel like you only scan for life forms when it's convenient to the plot, and when it's not, that's not an option, Every time they scan for life forms, I just throw my hands up and I'm like, well, why can you do that? That feels like cheating.
Don't you always want to scan for life forms?
Why I can't think of a single example outside of the escape pod with C-3PO and R2 at the beginning of A New Hope.
I don't know.
There's got to be
They scan for
something.
life forms. Yeah, you're putting me on the
It
spot
does happen.
now.
It does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not like calling you out on it. I just can't think of a single example outside of that. And I only think of that one because I know that's like the most heavily memed one, where people are like, well, they joke about it in Blue Harvest, don't they? Like the one guy's like, "What are we
Yeah,
spending?"
that's heavily
like,
memed. I want to say it happens in Rebels. I want to say it happens more than once, but maybe just once. That hope they're not. Is that the plot in that Plo Koon episode of the Clone Wars where that's where the meme "we're just clones, sir, we're meant to be expendable, but not to me" comes from? Weren't they all scanning for life forms in all of those? And that's Plo Koon was going to rescue from that.
yeah, probably.
I don't know.
I know that it happens many times. That's why I can't. This is not a good thing to be put on the spot about. But I mean, I'm sure as soon as we hang up, I'll think of 3 more examples.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I
The
know
Last
there's got to
Jedi,
be
when
more.
it doesn't happen in The Last Jedi, but Holdo stays on the flagship, and then everyone else flies away. And it's like, well, good thing they're not scanning for life forms because it just went down to 1. But that's fine because they shouldn't be scanning for life forms that often. That's a dumb move.
But do you think they do that more like in the real world, like military stuff? Do you think they actually they got to be right? They got to be doing something. Like they're like not they don't say it life forms, but they're probably scanning for civilians and stuff, right?
Yeah, I see. Like heat signatures,
use,
you
like,
scan for those.
Yeah, right. Oh, also speaking of heat
But-
signatures, this is something I wanted to mention really quick. Was the fact
No
that
way.
this was just this episode is just the nostalgia of loving 80s movies because they have the Predator sequence, and Michael Biehn is in Terminator, so I guess this maybe is more Terminator, but it reminds me of Predator when you're seeing that POV shot of all the heat signatures and stuff too. And I was like, Michael Biehn also is just like a weird tragic kind of guy where like he was the guy in the 80s and then he just like went away, and I feel like this was like a nice resurgence kind of for him and like a little homage to him, so it was nice to see him. So I feel like pulling out those little stops was fun to see.
If this was a resurgence for this guy, then he's just cooked. This was
Yes,
not a resurgence.
let me say this is the most resurgence he will get.
This was his last best chance before the retirement home.
Yeah, basically yes.
Retirement home. He's not that old.
He's not that old. He's just that uninteresting. I don't mean to disparage the man himself.
I do see a lot
just
of 80s movies on his IMDb page.
just Lang, I'm uninterested in.
Yeah,
Oh, he was in The Rock. That's a great movie.
big Sean Connery fan.
Well, anyway, let us know what you think about Hiding Out in Trash or Ahsoka Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13, The Jedi, and continue to follow along. We will be coming back next week to discuss The Tragedy.
Yes.
of
That's a good one.
course.
I'm excited for that one.
I'm very excited for that one. It is probably the episode that I've rewatched the most, actually.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's my favorite episode in all of Mandalorian.
All of them, all damn. All right. Sorry, this is
More
okay.
so than, are you trying to compare this to the season finale?
Yes, because
I
yeah,
do like The Tragedy more than the season finale.
I will see. This is the second time that I'm just shook when you guys are saying these. I remember when Luke was like, "This is my favorite episode," and then it was like, "Oh my god, that's crazy to say just out loud." I gotta see.
Did I say it
Because-
about the Marshal? Yeah, that's my favorite episode.
Yeah, it is.
Watching it
You
in
did. You did.
context, though, changes things. So maybe I will have a different.
That's what I'm
opinion than
saying.
what I anticipate
which is-
going in.
oh,
But I did
it's
just
so
click on
good.
it on IMDb. It's only 32 minutes long, and I don't know how much we're gonna have to say about it because of those 32 minutes, it is like 28 minutes of just pure action.
Yeah.
Try watching it with the audio description
Then
then.
to be phenomenal.
Oh
You
god.
can watch the action and
Maybe I
hear
will.
about it.
All right. Well, I'll give that a shot. That'll be my homework. I will report back next week. As always, thank you all for tuning in. You can reach out to us at forceforthought@gmail.com or across social media at forceforthought.
See you, Sammy.